on that note, I think it's well, I mean, it's my pleasure to introduce someone who has done it all before and has been fighting for our freedoms now for many, many years, and she has had a formative part in this Reform Party. I would like to introduce you to Anne Widdecombe. Anne Widdecombe.
Right, are we going to win? Yes! That wasn't too bad, but that's not going to get us over the line. So I'm going to try again. Are we going to win? Yes! That's right. That, as I said in Brixham a couple of days ago, is the level of energy that we've got to maintain if we are going to take Parliament by storm on July the 4th. Now, okay, we're not going to go from naught to government. That isn't going to happen. I believe in telling the electorate the truth. We're not going to go from naught to government. We can go from naught to opposition. And this country is going to need, and need very badly, an effective opposition after July the 4th, when we have got Starmageddon in control. From an opposition? Well, first of all, we want common sense. Yeah. We are the only party offering the people common sense. For example, let's take an obvious one. We all know that the health service is under strain. We all know that. We all know that there aren't enough doctors. And so what has the Conservative government been doing? It has been keeping a cap on the numbers of medical students. So we need more doctors, but we're going to cap the numbers training. Where is the sense in that? Reform will remove the cap altogether. And we'll go way beyond that. Because we know that not only do we have a problem of finding enough doctors, but there is also a major problem of keeping enough doctors. So we will say, and do say, that under our policies, if you spend 10 years working for the NHS after you have qualified, we will remit every penny of the student debt that you have. Common sense says that if you want people to do something, you have to offer them an incentive. And that is what we will do. And we will offer an incentive to all frontline health workers, not the target setters, not the form fillers. I'm talking about the front line, the patient-facing health workers. We will offer all of them, providing they stay in the NHS, 3 years tax-free. Wow. Yeah. So if you want to get rid of your taxes, first of all, vote Reform and then join the health service. Now, where is the common sense in saying that when we have got thousands of people arriving illegally in this country, coming here daily almost, where is the common sense in saying, well, we're going to let that happen while we pursue a plan to have them all dealt with in Rwanda? Where is the sense in that? Rwanda's fine. If the government had got Rwanda off the ground, that would have been fine. I wouldn't have objected. But where was the sense in never having a plan B? And Rishi didn't have a plan B. He talked endlessly about Rwanda. He was still talking about Rwanda when we came into the general election. But he did nothing as a fallback. And the consequence of that is that we have huge numbers of people in this country who do not have the legal right to be here, but who do take up health services, housing, all the rest of it that all of us take up, they also take up and use. So, common sense. And that is what we are offering the British people when it comes to woke. Keir Starmer doesn't know what a woman is. He thinks that 10% of them have a male appendage. Where is the sense in that? Where is the sense in teaching our children that there are 142 different genders? Where is the sense in not allowing parents to have a say over what their children are being taught? Where is the sense in letting Europe determine our defence policies? Where is the sense in turning our backs on NATO, who have kept the peace in Europe ever since the Second World War? Where is the sense of that? And where particularly is the sense of doing it when at the moment that peace has been threatened for the first time with the invasion of Ukraine? Where is the sense in wanting to compete with other countries and yet putting up business taxes? First thing Rishi Sunak did, first thing he did was to put up corporation tax to the same level as France. So what happens? Firms like AstraZeneca go to the Irish Republic because they have lower corporation tax. If we want Britain to be competitive, if we want to attract businesses, if we want to attract investment and thereby build employment, if we want to do all of that, then we need to be competitive, not prohibitive. Where is the sense in saying to people, oh, we're going to cut the level of tax that you pay, but by the way, you won't notice because we're going to freeze the thresholds? Where is it? So we stand for common sense. We will stop the votes, and we will stop the votes. We will stop the votes in the obvious way. We'll turn them back. Before anybody says that can't be done, A, it is perfectly permissible in international law. B, Australia did it. And C, Belgium did it. If they can turn boats round, why can't we?
Yes.
It is inevitable that some will get through because there's no such thing as a perfect system. So when people do succeed in coming here unlawfully, then we will house them in secure reception centres, not in hotels. You might ask yourself, why do they all come to Britain anyway? Why do they come to Britain? Why do they come to Britain? They're in a safe country, they're in France. France is under the rule of law. France is a signatory to all the conventions that we're a signatory to. There's nothing unsafe about France. They're in a safe country. Why risk a perilous sea journey and pay a sweet fortune to the people smugglers for the privilege? Why do all of that? And the answer is because we are the easiest country in the West in which to disappear. We don't have national identity cards. We don't have secure reception routinely practiced. We don't do any of that. But we do have a very flourishing underground economy. And we do have a lot of people scattered in hotels up and down the country. And when they're about to be refused, we can't find them. After you, at the moment, if you found them, you couldn't do anything because you haven't got any mechanism for sending them back. We can't find them. And that, therefore, the message goes out. If you come to Britain with a false or a flimsy claim, as long as you can get in the first place, you'll never have to leave. And very, very few do leave. And we're only going to deter people from making that perilous journey. We'll only deter them from doing that if they know that their stay here will be extremely short and that they will be returned once they can. That's just plain common sense. It is common sense to say when it comes to legal migration, it is common sense to say, of course we want people who have medical skills, who will go into the caring professions, who will do all of that. But we don't want people coming here just for the purpose of reading Mickey Mouse degrees in so-called universities and bringing their dependents with them. There is no sense in that. So what we're offering is a return to what we once took for granted in this country, starting with freedom of speech.
Yes.
We used to have a freedom of speech and a liberty of expression, which was the envy of the world. You think of our history. Immediately after the Second World War, when people had lost husbands, sons, brothers, families, life, limb to the Nazis, we still had in this country a British Union of fascists. And they were allowed to put their point of view. They weren't during the war, but after the war. Now why? We know that people would have been not just offended by that, but massively, massively hurt. But we allowed it. And why? Because Britain was a bastion of free speech. Move forward a decade or so. And we were in the height of the Cold War. With the weapons, we forget this now, the SS-20s lined up on the borders of the Warsaw Pact countries, pointing straight at us. Our businessmen were being arrested and claimed to be spies. We actually were in a Cold War. And yet, you could stand for Parliament in this country as a communist. You wouldn't get in, but you could stand as a communist. You could sell the Morning Star on street corners. There was a British Communist Party. And yes, that would offend and hurt people as well. But we allowed it because we believed in free speech. Now, if we allowed things of that order of magnitude, how come that now it only takes one person to say that a street preacher has offended them for that person to be arrested? And you don't have to prove that he did offend them. You don't have to prove that he said something discriminatory. You don't have to prove that he exhibited hatred. It is enough to say that the person making the complaint perceived that he was doing something. What sort of law is that? That's not law. That is oppression. Yes. So we will go for free speech. And we will make sure. somebody else is saying, but I will defend their right to say it. Only so long as they do not deliberately set out to incite violence. That is what always used to be the limitation on free speech. But now the limitation is somebody is offended. Well, nobody's got any God-given right to go through this life without being offended. I'm offended every day. That's several times every day. So, that's the first thing, freedom of speech. The second thing is freedom to grow. Freedom to grow economically. As I said earlier, if we want to promote employment, we want to promote a wealthy country, we want to meet the housing targets, which we need to meet, we want to have a health service which actually works, then we've got to have the money to do all those things. And governments don't make money. People make the money. It is the people who create the wealth in this country. And they must be free to do so and encouraged to do so. They must be given the necessary incentives. We must take low taxes, not high taxes. That is absolutely crucial. But then there is another sort of freedom. We've heard a bit about it tonight already. The freedom to believe that whatever else happens, our country is safe. And that whatever else may be going wrong, our country is safe. That is what we need to just take almost for granted. Well, now, the very opposite of that is true. We are not safe. We do not have the military capacity which we actually need. We don't have the ships. We don't have the aircraft. We don't have the men. We simply do not have it in sufficient quantities. And that is something else that it is crucial that we address, and which Reform has said that it will address and raise the amount that we are spending on our armed services, make sure that we support NATO and not the European Defence Union. So all those policies are what people want. And what we've got to do, therefore, is to make sure that people know what we're offering them. Now, I'm tired of hearing that a vote for reform is a vote for Starmer. A vote for reform is a vote for reform. It isn't reform that has put Starmer as far ahead as he is. It is the Conservatives who have administered this country, in inverted commas, administered this country, for the last 14 years, and particularly for the last 4.5. They are the ones who have guaranteed Starmer a victory, because they backbite, they panic, they defenestrate their leaders. I roared with laughter at the weekend. There, lo and behold, was a big article in the Mail on Sunday, which said that anybody who voted reform was putting Starmer in power. Then you turned the page, and the very next page gave an expose of how Conservative MPs are even now, in the middle of a general election campaign, plotting who to put in Rishi Sunak's place on. It was there on the very next page. I wondered if the editor had read the 2 pages and made any connection. So it isn't Starmer who's winning. It's Sunak who's given it to him. Given it to him on a plate. And our job is to make sure that we have a real opposition. And there are several ways of doing that. One is to win enough seats to be a parliamentary force. As I've said honestly, we're not going to be the government. We can be a parliamentary force. The second way is simply to say to whatever Conservative rump remains after this election, if you don't do business with us, and you don't give the people the common sense policies they want, we'll do it again. That is another form of power. So whatever happens, it is never a wasted vote if you put your cross by reform. Never. done. And already we've done already we've shifted the predictions, you know, the experts. They began this election by saying that we were going to get so many votes but no seats. Now they're saying, well, we're going to get so many votes but 7 seats. Give it another 2.5 weeks, we'll be on 50 seats. Yeah. So, 2.5 weeks to go, folks, and then it's done. We can't do anything after 10 o'clock on July the 4th. So everything we do has got to be done between now and then. First of all of you, absolutely every one of you in this room who's voting reform, I don't know if there's anybody who's not, but they may be feeling a trifle out of place by now. Any of you who are voting reform, or any of you who are thinking about voting reform, talk to other people. Now, we're well past the stage where people said, I've never heard of reform. But we are not well past the stage where people say, I'm not entirely sure what you stand for. Make sure that everybody knows what we stand for. And that will do a power of good. And as I always say to people, make sure that every single day of your life, every single day, at least between now and July the 4th, you talk to somebody about reform. Somebody at work, somebody casually that you're chatting to in the pub, member of the family who's phoned up, whatever it may be, talk about reform. And if you can't talk to people, put a leaflet through their door every single day. And if every single day we do something which puts the reform message out there, the accumulative effect will be more seats in Parliament. And that's what we go for. And particularly anybody who says, oh, you know, I'd like to vote reform, I really would, but, you know, might put Starmer in. Starmer's going to be in anyway. No doubt about that at all. And frankly, it doesn't make much difference once the party's got a big majority, whether it's got a big majority or a very big majority. And there is no suggestion that Starmer's only get a tiny majority. He's going to get a big one. So that's done. That's a given. What matters is who is then going to fight him? Who is going to provide real opposition? What army is going to be united against him? That ain't the concern. That is what we have to aim at now. That we will be that united, purposeful, common sense opposition. That is what we have now to achieve. We can achieve it. We can only achieve it if every single one of you go out here and do something towards achieving it. I mean, I'd like to think you leaflet 1,000 houses, but if that's ambitious, at least leaflet your own street. Because that helps. That gets things across. So, folks, thank you very much for inviting me here. I am going to take 3 questions in a moment. Thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. And thank you more than that for what you're doing for reform. If there are any doubters in the room who would like to talk to me afterwards, I'd be very, very happy to do so. And don't worry, I'll be perfectly polite about it. Meanwhile, go forth and prepare for opposition.
Has anyone got any questions? Sometimes controversial, but always honest. Anyone got any questions? Got a gentleman here? You okay? I'm going to hand you the microphone.
Identity cards. Any plans to bring them in?
There is no proposal on the part of reform to introduce national identity cards because we have other plans which will probably obviate the need for them. But having said that, I have never been opposed to national identity cards. And the interesting thing is that every single Home Secretary who's ever come into office against national identity cards leaves office in favour, because they are actually quite useful. But as I say, we've got other policies, so don't worry, that is not on our list.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go to this gentleman.
Just one question about taking the illegal people back to France. Will they accept them?
Well, they won't have any choice. Saying go back through French waters. You know, you can't leave French waters. They're already in France. That's what we've got to stop them doing, is entering British waters.
Yes, yes, yes.
Be done.
Hi, I've got two questions really. I've recently read Liz Truss's book. Deep State is very real, even she refers to it twice in the book. How are you going to fight the civil servants who are passionately opposed to Brexit? How are you going to deal with them? And the other question is, I understand that Reform is supporting fracking. And I would invite you to look at the policies, because there's no point in reducing our gas and electricity bill if our water bills go through the roof.
I agree with that one, but I believe we need to be self-sufficient in energy. If we are not.
Right.
And therefore I think we need to consider nuclear, which is clean, and we need to consider using the resources which we've still got in the North Sea, and we need to consider fracking. We need to consider all of this, and we need to work out the way that we maximise our self-sufficiency in energy in the shortest space of time. And just let me say something about net zero. Where's the common sense? We built under 1% of carbon emissions into the world's atmosphere. Under 1%. China, India, Indonesia, 25%. The United States, ours is less than 1%. And to cause our citizens endless expense with new boilers, electric cars, all the other things that we're now trying to impose, or that the current government has been trying to impose, in the name of 1%. While those other countries pollute the atmosphere, seemingly without restraint, is a bit like throwing a sugar cube into Loch Ness and saying, oh look, I've sweetened the waters. When they've got down to 1%. Sorry, the energy ones. Sorry?
Deep State.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I too have read Liz Truss's book, and I recommend it to you all. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but it kept me up for a long time. I really did. And she has titled that book, 10 Years to Save the West. And I don't think it's too much of an exaggeration, a little bit maybe, but not too much. Now, I am very clear, Reform is very clear, that government does the governing. The British government does the governing. We don't take orders from the World Economic Forum. We don't take orders from the World Council. And we don't have our work stopped by quangos. Government should govern. The British government should govern Britain. And that's very simple as far as the civil servants are concerned, because their job is to serve the government. And that definition hasn't changed. And if you get people who will not serve the government, then it's very straightforward. You you ask them to go and do something else?
Thank you. I'm just interested in why Reform Party might not be called the Common Sense Party members. It's stood out there and sends such a clear message that's so easy to understand. And I just feel that if many more of the population could hear this message of common sense, what an immense support, how that would sell the party.
Well, it's too late to rename the party. But yes, I agree with you. It's a very simple message. Now, long before its time came, William Hague called his manifesto the Common Sense Revolution. And I believe that would have tremendous impact today. It didn't then because nobody really believed how bad it was going to get. But he had things like, well, teachers should be teaching, not filling in forms. Nurses should be nursing. Policemen should be out on the streets policing. This was what he called the common sense revolution. And I believe, actually, since they've poached Armageddon from us, we can poach the common sense revolution from them. And we can talk about it.
And you've mentioned an awful lot of things that you're going to do.
Yep.
How will you fund any of these things?
Well, we've published our manifesto today. We don't call it a manifesto, we call it our contract with the people. But everybody else will inevitably refer to it as a manifesto. It's a bit like when we lost the fight to call the poll tax the community charge. And everybody said, yes, okay, but we called it the poll tax anyway. So everybody's going to call this our manifesto. And today, we have actually published the costings and where we're going to get it from. And they are all fully funded in the terms that if you add up what we're going to do and you add up where we're going to get the money from, it's paid. Now, it's very complicated where we're getting the bulk of that money from. But in essence, it works like this. Governments printed money, it's called quantitative easing. Governments printed money during the COVID disaster. Lots of money. And what? Because they have trillions to make. And what they actually did was, instead of themselves issuing the bonds and taking interest, they got the banks to issue the bonds, and the banks then charged them interest. So it's a bit like, Richard Tice put this rather well, he said it's a bit like handing somebody a fiver and then saying, and how much interest should I be paying? But it's complicated, it's not going to be an easy one to explain. But in case somebody says, as they're already trying to do, this won't work, Switzerland's done it, and the EU Bank has done it. It can be done, and we will do it, and that will give us billions.
Any more? Can we give Anne a massive, heavy round of applause?